Koto, and welcome to another episode of South Pacific Muscle. And tonight we are joined by the big kid himself, Josh Stiles of Focus Nutrition. Welcome on board, Josh.
How are we?
Good, bro. Really good to have you here. It's been so long, and I didn't, probably at the Tournament of Champions, the first time I've physically seen you in probably 5, 6, 7 years, maybe. And I didn't get the chance to catch up with you, but it's fucking good to see you in the flesh, my man.
Yeah, man, it was good. Yeah, it has been a long time, eh? I saw this Pacific Muscle thing pop up, and I thought I could look at this. Oh, it's Nate, the bro, and he started this up. So it's really cool what you guys do, and I'm super, super privileged and grateful to be a part of it.
Oh, look, we're absolutely privileged to have you, bro. And without our athletes out there,
there's no show, right?
Me and Mike just come and talk to each other about bodybuilding.
no one wants to listen to us go on. We have to have some guests.
Yeah, true. I think we're kind of like there's two old guys in the Muppets that sit up in the thing. Anyway, we got Josh on board. For those that don't know a lot about Josh, Josh is an Auckland boy, trains up in, he was at Club Physical. I'm not sure quite where he's at the moment, but I know you've been working with Elmer, who is he's a cool guy. I was thinking about when I was driving home, I was just like, he's one of those kind of in the background guys, just cruises along, but breaks his ass for his clients, and he's always there, and really cool to see you two teaming up and working together.
Yeah, it was a whole new experience for me. My experience coming from working with a coach has always been through Steve Campbell, who always did. He's an amazing coach. You know, he worked with me and learned my body inside and out to a level where it was all eyeballed and everything. So he's a good coach. This time through, it was a bit more of a convenience factor, and I kind of wanted to try something a little bit different. They both have different strengths as coaches.
Yep.
And I wanted to try and just nail my conditioning to a whole nother level. I've always looked up to Mateo's conditioning, and so I've been in dialogue with him since 2018 about what it takes to get him that lean. Yep. And it's things that, it's pushing your body to a whole nother level, to a whole nother limit. And I heard through the grapevine that my man Elmer was a pretty harsh coach in terms of what he put you through. So I was up for the challenge. So I chose him. In terms of what he gave me as a coach, and what I know he gives his athletes was unreal, man. It was phenomenal. He was so detailed with everything. He flew down for the competition, down to Palmy, and he was waking me up every 3 hours, making sure I was kind of still where I needed to be. And if I was dropping out with my fullness, we would add things in and take things out. His hands-on approach was like next level. You know, I've had experiences where I've seen coaches kind of once every 2 to 3 weeks. But with Elmer, it was at least once a week, the whole way through, at least. And in the final 4 weeks, I was seeing him 2-3 times a week. And if I could have seen him more, he was asking me to see him more often, and it was me that couldn't make the commitment more often. So he was definitely ready to gun as often as we could. So yeah, unreal.
Cool, man. Yeah, and hands-on is probably the word I'd describe with him. He's at all his athlete shows, the powerlifting comps, those sort of things, and he's fully involved. But you also mentioned Steve Campbell, so a big shout out to Steve Campbell. I haven't seen Steve for many years as well, but also was a very familiar face at Les Mills Takaback, and I know he's had some fantastic athletes, as has Elmer. Hey, look, Can we get some stats from you, man? How tall are you? What's your off-season weight? What weight did you get on stage at Tournament of Champions?
Yeah, man, sweet. So my height, on one of those like stadiometer things, the things that measure your height, I'm sort of anywhere from 178.5 to 179. I don't know how that translates to dehydrated weight. That's measured when I've been hydrated. My off-season weight, look, man, this competition I came from a year of doing absolutely nothing. You know, I took a break away from everything. in terms of health and fitness. I wasn't gymming. I wasn't lifting a single dumbbell. I did no cardio. I had no diet structure. In terms of my diet, it was terrible. So I came from, yes, I did my before and after photos are on my page, but I came from being completely like skinny fat, and just having to sort of like re-comp myself to competition ready. So it took us 25 weeks to do that. My off-season weight has been as high as 116. I don't have a huge frame. Like I've got skinny wrists and little knees and things like that. And that was a really, really uncomfortable weight for me to hold. But typically I kind of hold a comfortable, probably about 106 kilos off season normally. That's without pushing my body too far. My on-stage weight, my depleted dry weight, the morning of weigh-ins was 90 kilos. So that's the lightest I've been since I think I was 18 years old. But my on-stage weight, so on the morning of I weighed in, I brought my scales along down to Palmy, and I was just under 92. So I was 91.9. So yeah, you could say anywhere from 90 to 92 sort of kilos would be my stage weight at the moment.
And there was definitely not a lot left on you to pull off at that stage. I've got to say, you guys, to your credit, for going through the hard yards, and for Elmer's credit being the brains behind the operation, you guys fucking nailed that conditioning. I think, when you came out, the first thing I kind of went, I turned to, I was sitting next to Braden, one of the guys from Hamilton. I went, "Fuck me! Look at the separation in those legs!" And there wasn't an ounce of fat left on you. It was really good. You guys fucking fantastic job. Kudos to you.
Thanks, man.
Cool, man. And I will have a look at some photos afterwards I pulled up your before and afters, so I do know what you mean. And look, I've come from the same place, doing the drinking piss and sitting around and being fucking useless and not training, and then really realizing, I was more fat than skinny, but with not a lot of muscle mass. And 25 weeks is an amazing turnaround to get to where you got to from the condition that you were in. Absolutely. So it must have been pretty grueling.
Yeah, that was I definitely wouldn't want to put myself through that again. Like there was times throughout that prep where I felt like, if you were an ant being magnified by the sun, like it was like, and squirming, it was so uncomfortable. There was just like, there were a good 3 or 4 weeks where I felt like that. And like I knew I would finish the race, but there was so many times where I wanted to pull out. There was so many times where I just wanted to stop the experience. It was almost a torturous experience at times. I'm glad I went through it though, because kind of brought myself to yet again like another level of conditioning, put myself through some hard yards. I probably made more mistakes in that prep than I've ever made, but I was always more than happy and prepared to clean those mistakes up with whatever we needed to do to get that done, kind of thing.
Nice.
Yeah. So was that pain and suffering through 25 weeks around soreness in your muscles and getting back into the training, or was it the energy levels around diet?
Yeah, so that part I actually thoroughly enjoyed. I really, really enjoyed that prep. Brought my spark back for the gym, and now I've fallen in love with lifting weights all over again, which is quite cool. But it was more mental. It was more the nutrition side of it, the diet. For anybody that knows me knows that I have the king sweet tooth, and it was definitely like a challenge beyond challenges that I've faced personally. And just mentally, it was a whole nother challenge altogether. Yeah.
Hey, talking about, sorry, Mike, I'm just going to jump in on the food thing, because while I remember, I saw a photo the other day of was it a Burmese like barbecue type? What was all that about, bro? Because that was some of the best looking food. Usually I look at food and go, oh yeah. And I looked at that and I went, oh my goodness, I wish I was there. What was that all about?
Don't get me started. So my partner, my fiance, is Burmese.
Yeah.
and it was her 30th. And Burmese is not like it's not an ethnicity, it's not an ethnic group that's like super popular. It's not populated in our country. But when you get amongst this little community, man, they can eat some food, and they make amazing food. It's like a combination of Indian and Thai, and they kind of infuse all the different flavors. It's unreal. So we pretty much had like Burmese fiesta with all of her little Burmese mates over, made these amazing dishes, and I just couldn't help myself.
There was so much food there. I was thinking, how many people have you got over at your house, bro? It's a lot of food. Like lunches for the next 2 weeks. But yeah, hey man, fuck, next time we bump into each other, Burmese, bro, because I've never tried it, but my favorite foods are Thai and Indian. So yeah, man, that's us. That's us.
Hey, you don't have to hold back anyway. Off season, all right? So have at it.
Yeah, man.
Well, hey, you've competed a few times before, and from memory, you did pretty well in the NZIFBB. What was your sort of history prior to this show in terms of, what was your first show and where did you progress to over the years?
Yeah, man. Okay, so started as a young buck. I started at 16 years old. I did one teenage competition with NABA, which I won. 2 junior men's. I got 2nd place and 3rd place in those ones. And then I kind of left it and got into combat sports, boxing and Muay Thai for a bit. I re-entered the stage. So I did my last competition when I was 18, and then I started competing seriously again when I was 24.
Yep.
I competed for NABA WFF at a Pan Pacific shows, at one of the Pan Pacific shows. It must have been 2014. Tony Lingalinga was there. I won the novice kind of section and had to compete against Tony Lingalinga, who's an absolute legend in the flesh, man. That guy is just incredible. He wiped my ass on stage. He pretty much just dusted me off.
Did that to me too. Did it to me in the couples.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it was incredible to be on stage with someone like that. And then the week after that, I did an IFBB show. Or was it the week before? And I won the novice overalls for the IFBB Auckland competition. Lost to Elmer Clayton in the overalls. Oh, wow. Big boy.
Yeah.
Yep. And then it just kind of like progressed from there. I kind of did a couple of IFBB shows, a couple of WFF shows, and then I heard that WFF had this like pro division and it looked exciting, and I had seen some of the caliber of the athletes from Australia that were flying over, and the conditioning. And with bodybuilding, I've got this fascination with the conditioning side of it. I have a bit of a soft spot for that particular part, which I have to be careful of. I know in IFBB. So I competed, won a pro card in 2017 for the extreme muscle division. Yep. So I won my pro card then, became a pro. I competed the following year with the pro lineup, and I took 2nd place in an absolutely stacked lineup, man. Like their conditioning was next level. Like it was a scary as lineup. We had like Gaurav, the glute man.
Yep.
The guy Dean, I can't remember his surname, but I think he's from down the line. He's a WFF diehard, I think. He actually won the pro comp in 2018. There was an Australian guy, Big Aaron was there.
Yep.
So it was cool, man. It was an unreal experience, and I actually had myself in sort of like 3rd or 4th position, 3rd place, and to have achieved 2nd for that one was quite cool. And then I thought, I noticed that IFBB had this classic component that they brought into it, this new division, and I really liked the look of it. So everybody that I knew in the bodybuilding scene was always pushing me to sort of enter in this division, saying I kind of had the right aesthetics for it.
Yep.
And it was just me. It was just me taking a bit of time to make the mental adjustment. Once I made that mental adjustment, I fell in love with the look. I fell in love with the posing. So this was my first crack at the look for classic physique.
Yep. Nice.
What's your weight limit for classic?
If I go by what stadiometer had me at, I believe my weight limit's 98 kilos. But if this is where I'm a little bit confused on like measuring in. If I measure in dehydrated, I'm assuming I'd fall to that sort of 78 or 77, 177 centimeters, and that would probably cap me at 94 kilos, from my understanding.
Big difference, eh?
Yeah. So that's one thing I have to clear up before I hit this next sort of off season. I would really, really like it to be 98 because there's a lot of fun in the off season with that.
Yeah.
So I had a guy come in, and I was at a NABBA show, and he was trying to do his height and weight, and he came freaking out going, I'm overweight, I'm dehydrated as fuck, I can't lose any more weight. What do I do? I said, hang on, calm down. How tall are you? And they go, oh, well, I thought I was this, and they measured me at that. I said, did you stand up tall? He goes, oh, I think so. I said, but let's go and get them to remeasure. So I lifted him up, cracked his back, cracked his spine from him, sort of straightened everything out, went back, he gained a centimetre, gained a kilo in weight, made weight, went on and did the show. So when you make sure you cracked your spine out and got everything clicked in place and stand up as tall as you can, you might get that extra centimetre you need.
I might tee something up with you before the next comp, bro.
Oh, it's nothing special. You know, get your foam roller or something like that, just click all those vertebrae back in place, and it kind of just gives you that little bit of extra.
Gotcha.
I'm thinking a 2.5 pound plate, and just give yourself a fucking knock on the head and get a bit of an egg going on up there. Scrape in an extra centimeters.
Sounds good.
Oh, hey, just in a general, and this is a really hard question actually, because there's a lot of variables, I guess, that change it. But what's your general approach to training in terms of the way you go into your usual sort of sessions, in the off season versus on season? What's your approach? Are you just get in there and smash whatever you feel like on the day, or you're very,
Gonna steal all my quick fire questions, mate.
I am a bit there, Mike, and
that's all right. We'll make it slow fire. We'll get the detail.
Yeah, man.
No, that's cool, man. I know where you're going with that. Historically, it has been just get in there and be raw with it all, and just give myself a hell of a session. And it was always a bit more of an intuitive style of training. I tended to train as heavy as I could. I over time sort of dropped the ego lifting, but still kept an element of like heaviness in there, but nothing that would make my joints suffer, and to sort of like, I guess, to make up for what I would lose in the actual weight, I would make up for in reps. So a lot of my stuff ended up being like pretty high rep stuff, even in the off season. I was doing some ridiculous sort of numbers in the off season. I remember doing sets of sort of 80 to 100 reps on the leg press just to give myself a hell of a session. But over time, I kind of dropped back from that again. I hired a guy called Ahmad Askar, who's involved with coaching Rolly Winkler. So I worked with him for about 3 months, and he helped just bring me down back to earth, down to a much more grounded, sound level of training. And it was more focusing on that, that general hypertrophy range, 10 to 12. He said I could finish up with a set of 8, as long as nothing that wasn't supposed to be sore was being sore. So like my joints, my knees, all that kind of stuff were okay. He was happy with me doing a heavier lift of 8, but everything had to be sort of met within sets of 10 to 12. And I had to complete at least 20 sets per muscle group.
Wow.
Yeah, so 20 to 25 sets was what we're hitting, and I try to maintain that today because I enjoy that amount of volume, and it just gives you a good lengthy workout to get through. By the end of it, you're fizzled. If I feel like I'm fizzling early, I'll stop it. Like, I'm not one to push through and give a meaningless workout.
Yeah.
So I'll take it to its absolute limit for as long as I can go, and generally that lasts for about sort of anywhere from as low as 18 up to 24, 25 sets on a good day.
Wow. So sorry, Mike.
Have you historically had problems with your tendons and joints? Because you're quite young
Yeah,
to kind of have those sort of problems.
Yeah, man. I overdid it as a youngin'. I was a pretty big fella when I was 18 years old. Towards the end part of being 18 years old, I got up to about 112 kilos. I was eating massive amounts of food. This was all like bro science. There was nothing being accounted for. I just wanted to be the biggest, youngest buck that I could be. And at the age of 18, I think I was squatting sort of 230. And I wrecked my knees. They're still wrecked from it now. Like, they have not recovered since I've been 18 years old. So I've still got to be really careful on the amount of load that I put through them. I've had a blown disc in my lower back. And my elbows are a little bit funky, but it's more of an on and off kind of thing. So I'm a young fellow with old man problems at the moment.
Well, I'm an old man with old man problems, and I'm working around a lot of those same issues, trying to put enough stress on the muscles, but without weight. So trying to get big without lifting heavy weights, it's a bit of an oxymoron, but
yeah.
Right, Mike, I'm going to hand over to you for your quick fire before I steal all your questions here, buddy.
Right. Well, we've already talked about off-season sort of volume versus intensity. Now, are you dirty bulk or do you stay lean in the off-season?
I haven't, the last off season. So man, I haven't done an off season, like a proper calculated off season. I haven't done since 2015. Or was it 2016? I haven't done for quite some time. My off seasons were more just like, I always just aimed to be comfortable. And I did have, at the beginning of my bodybuilding career, I was undereducated with it all, and I was all dirty bulking at the beginning, and that's just dropped off and changed. And then the last off season I had, 2016, I think it was, I was on a heavy load. So like I was on 5,500 calories, but all coming from clean food. And then I would do like a cheat meal or a couple of cheat meals once or twice a week. So typically I get all of my meals have been coming from clean sources of fuel, but this time through, I'm going to change it up, man. This time through, I'm going to keep it leaner. I'll do like a really small surplus. I'll probably hit like a 200 to 300 calorie surplus and try and keep it calculated. I want to try and keep everything calculated this off season, because I found that Alma's approach in calculating things and being really analytical about it all in the on season made a real difference, because I was actually able to really closely estimate the mistakes I was making and make up for them. And I feel that taking the same approach to the off season will also give me a bigger benefit in terms of maintaining leanness. I've been looking into a lot of like data, a lot of research through. There's a guy called Eric Helms who I'm a big fan of. He's a professor at AUT, but he's on the world scale in terms of like his status with nutrition and stuff as a physique coach. Lane Norton, and these guys all suggest that it's probably slightly better for you to stay leaner so that you don't have to go through as much work in the on season and drop the body fat that you accrue. And just hearing the studies that they've pulled has kind of twisted my arm a little bit into wanting to keep things slightly leaner. And if it doesn't work, if that low surplus kind of gig doesn't work, we'll just hike it up as we need to.
There's seems to be a lot of value to staying relatively lean. Well, not lean, but relatively lean for insulin sensitivity, and apparently you get a lot of conversion to estrogen when your body fat levels are quite high. So it seems to me that most people have had their dirty bulk phase, and it tends to be early on. Yeah. There's a lot of dirty bulking going on, and then as you sort of progress up the ranks or through the experience, you sort of tend to try and stay a bit leaner. possibly that we get a bit more discipline and a bit more focus with our diet too. I remember back in the 90s, it was, a meal might have been pizza and a protein shake, or, a scoop of chips with a tin of tuna on top. It was just as long as I ate carbs and protein, I was eating it. But now it's a lot more structured and a lot more.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more emphasis now on what the off season looks like. Traditionally, you take it back 10 years, unless you're an elite guy, you kind of didn't have a game plan so much for the off season other than to slam some weight on. And whereas now, a lot of off seasons are as structured as pre-comp, So.
Well, there's a lot of argument about guys trying to stay too lean and whether they're compromising their growth, and that's often attributed to Instagram and having to stay looking good all year round for the Instagram followers, and so the jury's still out on whether dirty bulking's the go. But I think maybe in your youth, but not so much as you progress.
If I hit too many walls and I'm forced to do the whole dirty bulking thing, I'll let you know, bro.
Well, 5,500 calories from clean food is a fair bit to get in. I'm chopping back about 4-6, and I'm battling. Yeah,
it was so hard, man. It was so uncomfortable doing that. And there was I had breathing issues, and that, that old thing where you hold your breath and do your shoelaces up. That was a real.
We all know that.
Yeah.
The face starts going.
Yeah.
Not fun.
Cool. So in that food that you're eating off season, do you sort of go high carb, high protein, low fat, or do you have a different mix of your macros?
Yeah, no, I typically go high carb, high protein.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I kind of shoot my protein a little bit. I just always have. I've always overshot my protein. People are always telling me I have too much protein, but I find I just feel safer mentally knowing that I'm getting in an adequate amount at regular intervals each time I'm supposed to eat. And I'd rather overshoot than undershoot.
Yeah, definitely.
And so when you're in those sort of bulking phases, do you do any sort of mini cuts? Do you do carb cycling, anything like that?
I haven't, man. I never have. In fact, after this competition was the first time ever I've done like a reverse diet. So I did my week of naughty eating after that competition to have some relief, some mental relief. And then I was in conversation with pretty much all of the guys in the class that I competed with, who were all just phenomenal. The sportsmanship were just, it was next level. And we were all sort of, we all had a similar interest in reverse dieting. So we created a bit of a group that we communicate through on Instagram now, that we still have now for accountability pretty much. Because after a competition, the reverse diet on Instagram, it looks quite glamorous, and it's a very healthy way of doing things for your metabolism, but it's a real fucking challenge, man. It's really difficult to, once your motivation has dried up after competing and not having that forefront of drive left, it's really difficult to maintain that momentum. And so we teed up this group, and it's been really good, man. I'd say I've probably been 70% better than I've been in the past with maintaining a healthier approach to dieting again.
That's cool, man. Because after a show, your body's in a state of starvation essentially, and there's a prehistoric part of your brain that kicks in, and it's a response to go feed me, because I know the next lot of starvation's coming. And I spoke to people about that, because look, I had probably one of the worst blowouts in the world. Mike knows it. I think I put on 24 kilos in 3 weeks or something. And I had a sore gut for 6 weeks. I had so much water retention, it was ridiculous, but I couldn't stop eating. And so I spoke to someone about it, and they told me about the prehistoric part of your brain that drives that, and it's not something you can override. And so I said to them, well, if you can't override it, how do you? And they just said, you've just got to manage it. And they said it will subside after, I think it was 3 weeks, 4 weeks, that response will subside. So by having like a support group of guys that are all in the same situation, what a fantastic way of managing something that in some ways can become very unmanageable.
Yeah, man. It started off with me and this Tongan fella called Sione, who competed at the Naturals, which I think was the week before the Palmy show.
Yeah, a couple of weeks, somewhere there, but yep.
Yeah, and we were doing cardio together in the mornings, and both spoke about the reverse diet part of it. And then he came up with the idea to hit a photo shoot in sort of like 5 to 6 weeks post competition.
Great idea.
And and I'm not one for photo shoots. You know, I'm not that kind of person. I have done one in the past, but it's just not me. But I thought, you know what, if that's what will sort of pull me through this reverse diet part, why not? Let's do it. So him and I teed it up, and then I was in kind of like separate dialogues with a lot of the other guys that I met through that competition in my class. And they were all saying the same shit. So I was like, well, hold on a second. Let's just collaborate this. And I introduced everybody that didn't know each other. And there's even a couple of guys that are in the group who are they're gunning for the Pro-Am next year. And I thought, we'll pull these guys into it so we can leech off of their motivation. So, yeah. So it's
top idea.
It's an awesome indication of where the sport's at. Guys are up there competing against each other, are also happy to help each other and make each other better, drives everybody to be better. So that's really cool.
Next level, I haven't, that was part of the main reason for me transitioning from WFF to IFBB, was when I was preparing for my pro show with WFF, 95% of my support was coming from IFBB athletes. And I just felt there was a lot more of a connective brotherhood. You know, there was just a greater level of support. The guys that I was friends with in WFF, I take my hat off to them. They're still awesome. It's just that there was more of it coming from, like, I had Matteo, you know, who's he's the pinnacle of classic physique of New Zealand bodybuilding for IFBB currently in New Zealand. And he was advising me. He was giving me help while I was preparing to get ready for a pro show in a different federation. And I just felt that so comforting and so supporting. So I thought, you know what, my next one, I'll come back over. I had a lot of good feedback from Mo as well, who said I looked phenomenal. And he had nothing to say bad, or he didn't even bring up the other federation. He just congratulated me on my conditioning. And I thought, you know what, next time I compete, I'll go to Classic. I'll try to get it through my head to do Classic, and I'll go across to IFBB because that's where most of my bros are, and I'm getting a lot more support that way. And at that competition, I was blown away, man. Darren Dingle, we became really close friends throughout that prep. He was one guy that kept me. He was the fire up under my ass, man, because that guy brought the conditioning to a whole nother level. And it made me nervous knowing I was going to be on stage with somebody like that.
Awesome.
But we communicated throughout the whole prep. We kept each other motivated. There was no ego going on. It was friendship. And then on the day we had fun. We treated it like friends, but we were also quite professional about it. You know, when it was time to get down and do your thing, you just get down and focus. And then after the competition, man, everybody was there was no trophy kickers. It was every single guy in that group congratulated each other. It was pats on the back, and we all added each other on Instagram and became friends. So I think you're right. It is definitely it's a really cool indicator to show where the sport is leading. And it's just awesome that it's Classic Physique that's led me down that path kind of thing.
And what a massive momentum Classic Physique's had in New Zealand, and I don't know whether it's due to the success of, I mean, Matteo, no words, man. You know, like for a guy, you know, to come from New Zealand and hit the Olympia stage and do what he did, You know, he's led the charge, but I think it's more than that. I think it's a class that's really got people excited because, you know, not everyone can be 300 pounds in the off season and get on stage at, you know, at a weight that's still considered severely obese on a BMI scale. You know, there's only a few people that can do that, and there's probably even less people that want to do that. But the you know, the classic bodybuilding look is still, you know, it's still considered a bodybuilder, and it falls within everyone's definition of bodybuilding, including, you know, 300 pounders are still going classic bodybuilding as a ticket. And it's got such a lot of support. Like the number of athletes that competed in classic at that Tournament of Champions and the standard kind of blew my mind, to be honest. You know, it was must be cool to be a part of it.
I think you hit the nail on the head about that. With being bigger bodybuilders, and it was nice to be able for me to drop down. You know, instead of having to keep up with, there's some monsters in New Zealand, man, like Paris. Dude, that guy, if you've met him in real life, he is so fucking big. He is massive. It feels like he's going to eat you just by sitting next to you. He's really big. Denver is another one, bro. Like that guy is, I mean, he's another level altogether. And then you've got that big fella from down the line, Ryzilla.
Yep.
And his training partner. See that pic the other day.
It's scary, like being a little framed dude trying to keep up with them. So it's really, really cool having this new class to drop into, because it's more of a comfort spot. You know, I don't have to force my body into that state of being super unhealthy to look like I can compete with them in size. And but you get a different sense of enjoyment. You get to maintain the aesthetic. You know, you don't have to try and blow out to keep up with those big fellas like that.
Yeah, I think for some people, you know, like we've got in the past, we've had some really good kind of light heavyweights and middleweight bodybuilders. And for them now, in today's environment, to try and win an overall title, they're probably going to be forced into playing a bit more of the size game to try and keep up with the likes of Paris and things, which actually probably detracts from the physique that they put on stage. You know, because getting big for the sake of getting big doesn't always equate to creating a better bodybuilder on stage.
Definitely not. Yeah.
So you want to think about trying to hit maxing out your weight limit, right? And so for me, I sort of I'm just over 6'1", so I think I'm allowed to be 109 for classic. And when I was 20 years ago when I was bodybuilding, I thought, well, at 6'2" to be competitive, what am I going to have to be on stage? 140, probably.
Yeah.
That's just not health-wise, training-wise. My joints falling apart. It's just not, not doable. So the idea of kind of, well, if I got to 109 shredded, that's kind of, that's doable. I could do that. And you want to stack yourself up with the maximum, with the best. Now, I might not look the same, might not have the same shape or structure, but I know I'm not going to be outsized because we're all on the same page, So, and that seems attainable to me. So probably a lot of people think of that.
Are we going to be able to pin you down to a commitment here to move to classic, are we, Mike? Or is this just you're just mulling the idea over?
I wrote down some goals the other day. I've got a few other things to hit first. Yeah.
Nice. Sorry, we absolutely railroaded you, Mike, and cut you off from the quick fire.
It's all good chat, man. We're getting some good info here. Let's move on to pre-comp though. Do you cut hard and fast, or do you come in slow? What's the sort of length of prep do you prefer?
Typically slow. I typically take a slow approach. When I was prepping with Steve Campbell, it was always a slow approach. It always worked really well for me. I normally sort of aim for sort of 14 to 16 weeks, and both coaches had this. They just both had this kind of mentality that you don't try to fix what's not broken. If it's not broken, don't fix it, kind of thing. So if I'm continuously losing body fat, then don't touch it. And the moment that I plateau, Alma had a bit more of a patience game in that aspect. He would wait just a little bit. I think what he was waiting for was kind of to see how many mistakes I was making, kind of thing. But once he got the idea that my body had actually made the adjustments, then he would change everything up. He would change, he would normally change one component at a time. So normally it was through nutrition. And then when the body got really, really stubborn, he'd change my cardio. And cardio got pretty ridiculous. I'm an advocate for cardio, and that's only because I took advice off Matteo in 2018 and got my body to a level that I had not experienced. And had I not done the amount of cardio he advised me to do, then I would not have come in as conditioned as I did. And I could not get that out of my head for this prep. So I had to do it again. I had to put myself through the hard yards of cardio. I knew that there's a huge element of catabolism with lots and lots of cardio like that. But I've got this, like I said, I've got this sweet spot for conditioning. And if I didn't give it every single ounce that I had, to the point where I was literally dizzy almost every single cardio session. I know that sounds really unhealthy. But if I didn't do that, I would have gone in feeling like I could have done more. And I hate that. So, yeah, the approach is typically slow, but I'm kind of naughty in that aspect where Alma would tell me to keep my cardio low, and I would always hike it up further than what it should have been. And that might be something that I revisit at the next prep, but for now, I'm an advocate for cardio, and I don't know if that'll change. And it's just because I've had such good results with my conditioning, only because of the amount of time I put in with all the cardio.
So my next question was going to be, when you want to make a tweak, what would you do first, food or cardio? And it sounds like the food gets moved first, but you're a big fan of cardio. When you say,
sorry, you go.
When you say you hike it up, do you hike up the amount of cardio you do, or the intensity level? Because by coming off dizzy, you're doing some high intensity cardio in there.
I did. This is the very first time I tried high intensity interval training. Like, you know how people have got their idea of HIIT training and that it's really just circuit training. I actually added in like proper real McCoy, like give it 100% of your intensity. And I think I got up to sort of like 10 sets of 30 seconds, which absolutely shot my central nervous system. And that was for like the first half of the prep until I couldn't give it anymore. There was one morning I woke up and I was like, I can't do this. I can't continue to do this high intensity stuff. Yeah. What I did notice though, doing that high intensity interval training, was that my body fat was moving so much faster than it has in the past, and I was maintaining weight. So like my muscle mass and my metabolism felt to be on fire. I don't know how else to explain it. And I also looked at the studies and the research done behind HIIT versus LISS, and HIIT does have a really promising aspect to it for maintaining your metabolism, whereas LISS kind of has like a very gradual decrease over time. So I did that as long as I could, and when I couldn't do that anymore, then I would introduce longer amounts of low intensity stuff.
I've often used.
Yes.
Sorry, I want to dig into that, Mike, because there was a conversation recently that I heard, and it was very similar to what you're saying. They said, look, you know, I did it and the weight just started coming off, but I got burnt real quick. And what sort of time frame did you manage to keep up doing the HIIT stuff before you noticed it was starting to fry out the central nervous system?
Yeah, I reckon I did it for a solid 6. No, I'm going to say I did it solidly and increased my time doing it for about 6 weeks. Then I maintained it for a further 2, and then I kind of decreased for 2. So it was probably, I probably did HIIT training for about 10 weeks out of the full 25-week prep. And then I just couldn't keep going with it, eh?
Sounds like my worst nightmare.
I've had clients where I've kind of been bringing them in, and I prefer the low intensity cardio. And I'll sort of, you know, one week I might bring away a little bit of food. The next week I'll just increase the cardio by 15 minutes or so. But every now and then I kind of feel like their metabolism's slowing down. So I might actually bump the food up bring the food back up, hit some high intensity cardio just to speed the metabolism up, and we start slowly bringing it down again. And that's often about every sort of four weeks or so, 4 to 6 weeks. We kind of need to do that. So I mean, it's different for every person, and what works for you works best for you. But that's what I've found with all the clients, has worked pretty well.
Yeah, I sort of told myself this prep I wanted to try everything different. You know, I wanted to completely change what I was used to. So I changed. You know, there was a change in coach. There was a change in cardio style. I'd never done HIIT for a bodybuilding competition before. There was a change in my weights. Alma, I would do like a really, really high reps leading into a competition, sorry. And Alma had me lifting as heavy as I possibly could. He had me under the mindset of, if I could lift heavier as we progressed, then try to. So I kept my strength really, really close to 100%. I probably took like maybe a 5-10% decrease towards the last sort of 3 to 4 weeks. But it never got any lower than that.
Cool.
You're doing really well answering my questions before I asked them, because that was going to be the next when coming into the show, whether you changed your training style leading into the show with you say high intensity. So you've just answered that for me. So I'll go back to another question. So you're doing your high intensity HIIT training, and you're in sort of 10 sets of 30 seconds with, you know, potentially 30 seconds a minute, 2 minutes off in between. So you get through about 15 to 20 minutes worth of work, and your total calorie expenditure around there's probably going to be sort of 200 to 300 calories.
Yeah.
Did you do it on the step? Do you do it on bike or stepper, or so? Have you got something that's measuring that calorie expenditure, or are you just kind of going for it?
I didn't, man. I just went for, there's 2 exercises that I kind of, I don't know if enjoy would be the right word, but I liked more than everything else. And because I have a background in boxing, I would use the bag, but I would give the bag like 100% in terms of my speed and power for 30 seconds. Made me want to vomit after every single set. And then once I got bored of the bag, it was the battle ropes.
Nice.
Yeah. And those, I know.
Yeah,
cool. Yeah, they were worse. So those were the 2 things that I used, but you couldn't really measure on either one of those tools. It was just, I just had to know that I was giving 100% every single time.
Yeah, so I mean, if you contrast that with, say, an hour of incline treadmill walking on the treadmill, and you're probably going to burn 500 to 600 calories in an hour. So you might be doubling up the calorie expenditure during your workout, but potentially you've got an increase in sort of thermogenesis right throughout the day from that boost from the HIIT training. So potentially balance it out.
Yeah, and me being a bit of a sicko with cardio, I did the HIIT training on its own at the beginning, but then I got it in my head that I needed to do low intensity to follow up, so I did both. It's something I'm going to have to revisit next time. But
cool, man.
That'll be why you needed 5,500 calories in the off season. Any idea what your calories were coming in when you're doing all that work? Because that sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah, at the beginning we kept everything, I think, around maintenance. I was at the beginning of it, man, we were probably up around just under 3,500 calories. This is maintenance this is excluding like all of the exercise. This is just for body maintenance, with like a relatively busy exercise schedule. But I kind of excluded the really, really heavy stuff out of it. So Alma had me at about 3-4, I think. For the first part of it, we had a drop of about 400 when we were kind of at the beginning of crunch time, which was like 16 weeks out. I think he dropped me down to 3K. So from 16 weeks out, I was about 3,000 calories, and we just took real progressive drops. He would only drop me sort of 200 to 250 calories at a time. And that was only when my body fat was stagnant.
That's a beauty, I think. Like, you know, you made the point earlier that you were really meticulously monitoring things, and Alma was a stickler for that. And when you've got that and that standardization of what you're doing, you can make those little adjustments. Otherwise, you know, the coach is really guessing, you know, if you take out 200 calories, then are they actually having bits and pieces or not doing as much in the cardio? And we're kind of guessing here. And and you're more likely to get those big, 500-600 at a time lopped off, and perhaps put yourself in a situation where you lose more muscle tissue than you need to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was one thing I really liked about his approach, was that every time I got an update, it was all calculated. Everything was there for me, all of the macros, all of the calories, and every time I recounted it, it was pretty much bang on. There was none of this kind of guesswork bullshit. It was all, Elmer could very comfortably eyeball, because he's been in the game for 30 years? And
yeah, easily.
Yeah. And someone with that amount of experience could pretty much just look you straight up and down, tell what your body fat percentage is, and then hit you a plan without even calculating anything. But he still kept that methodical kind of approach with me. And, I'm just a fan of the guy after that. It was an experience too good to ignore.
Probably something that, actually getting that is a form of, not reward, but it's feedback that if you're not getting that, you might feel, sometimes you sort of feel a bit lost and where's the end goal and am I progressing all right? But when you're getting the data and you can see all that stuff, it's like, cool, man, I know where I'm at. We're in the game. We're on track.
Yeah. You do feel like you've got that backbone to your structure. Yeah. Like you've got a bit of a spine to everything that you can kind of fall back on and move forward from.
Yeah.
I think it's really good for kind of learning from that experience and making adjustments. Be really meticulous with your plan. Your plan doesn't always go to plan, but you always really quickly can work out what's going wrong, and you fix it for next time. So if you're just sort of eyeballing and kind of going by the seat of your pants, it's really hard to make adjustments and fix things for next time. So every prep should be more efficient than the last. You're really prescriptive with it like that, it makes it a lot easier.
Right.
Definitely.
We're going to hit the Instagram page, man, because I want to have a look. Okay, so here we've got Josh's page, Focus Nutrition New Zealand. I see on there, nutritionists, obviously, the answers you're throwing at us are, they've got some real depth to them. So, I didn't know your background, but, quite clear, you think. You did a bit of CBT. How's that? Tell us about that.
Sorry, can you say that again? Sorry,
you did a bit of cognitive behavioural therapy. Tell us about that and how that plays in as a bodybuilder.
Yeah, this page is really old, man. That type of, I did like an online diploma with CBT that was with something that I was really interested at the time to do with people's eating patterns and their results, like the way that they've essentially like their internal environment becoming their external experience kind of thing. Yep. Yeah, it's not something that I use now, but it was just that I haven't taken it off. It's an old thing I was fascinated with for a little bit.
Oh, yeah, I went through a bit of a phase like that too, and just, not that I did the study into it, but, that I used a lot of those techniques that sort of helped me in, in stages where I perhaps was lacking the motivation or didn't quite, so that was an interesting sort of a experience, but more onto bodybuilding. Here we go. Man with the prize. So, Elmo and yourself after the show. How did it feel winning that one, bro? Because I know, like, you and Andrew are up there, and I was going, Josh has got this. Oh, no, Andrew's got this. Oh, no, Josh has got this. And I kind of went back and forward. And Andrew perhaps faded a little, or maybe, like I think in the bodybuilding, he worked harder for that. But, you worked and appeared to get better as the posing went on. But it was fucking close. It was close. So how did it feel when you were actually awarded that first place?
Oh, it was awesome, man. That type of thing, I remember having a talk with Darren, and that's the whole reason I sign up to bodybuilding. It's not to win, but it's to feel like you've brought everything you can bring and you've gone to the very end of your rope, and to feel when you turn up on the day and there is another athlete who has done the same. Yep. And it's kind of like, if there's just one or two of those athletes or even more, and you can hold a question mark on your placing, it's so much more worth it. It's like that adrenaline or that sense of not knowing. And then there's that anticipation before they call out the placings. I cared little for the placing that I got. I cared for the result that I brought. And for me to see someone like when I saw Andrew Murray backstage, I was like, oh, he's coming as kind of like the dark horse because he said he wasn't going to compete again this year. I even asked him if he was going to compete at that show, and he said no, cheeky bugger. And then when I saw him backstage, man, I was like, holy shit, this little guy is a scary ass bodybuilder, man.
Yeah, man.
And he held the confidence, and I love that because it spooked the shit out of me, you know, and that's what I signed up for. I sign up for that anticipation. I don't want to walk into a room and be the guy that knows he's won every single time. I don't want to do that kind of sport. So to go up against someone like Andrew Murray and even Darren Dingle, man, they're both seasoned conditioners, you know. I felt like it was so worth it. That was why I turned up. That they were the reason that I turned up on the day, was to go against people of such high caliber.
Do you reckon that when you see people like that and you're backstage, or even as you build up to the comp and you see the guys you're competing against and they've got that fucking death face, you know that you've shared a journey and you've gone through some fucking dark times, and there's a kind of special bond that you kind of get with people that take it to the fucking 101% of what they've got, and you know you've done the same thing. Yeah,
100%. This brings me back to probably my fondest memory of bodybuilding, and it was the 2000. I think I placed second next to Denver at the IFBB 2015 bodybuilding at the Waikato's.
Yep.
And then I let my diet go the week before the Nationals. I couldn't hold it together, and I overate for 3 or 4 days, and then I rocked up to the Nationals with like not many abs, and
oh no,
and yeah, and and to top it off, Matteo ended up being in my class on that day, but it wasn't the fact that I kind of blew it out, and I mean I knew I had done it. I just wanted to have an experience of being at a national championship, but I got to stand next to New Zealand's best, like one of the best ever in our country. I regard him as like one of the GOATs, you know, like that guy is just next level. When I saw him step up onto the stage with me, my jaw could have hit the floor, man. Like that level of conditioning inspired me. And since that day, I've always been an advocate for conditioning.
Yeah.
And I think even on that competition, I was, before the audience even cheered or applauded him, I was the first one to do it on stage. And just to be able to compete with somebody of such a high standard, it had its effect on me, having a standard for myself. And so now I look for that at every competition. I kind of cross my fingers that there's going to be people that can shit all over me, or at least that I can question my results with. And I definitely got that with Andrew and a couple of the other guys in the open class.
Yeah.
But particularly Andrew, because he took center stage and I didn't get a shot at that center stage while the final three were up.
Yep.
In the overall, I was on the right hand side, and I thought, oh, you know, he's got it, but you know, good on him because he's a legend. He's worked hard. He deserves this. This was all the stuff that was going through my head. And then when they called his second place out, I was kind of like, holy shit, I did it. So,
oh, gold. Hey, that's a real interesting point too. You know, like I think some of the experiences, you know, like some of my best experiences, you know, I haven't won, I haven't fucking placed where I thought I'd place, but it was about the people I stood next to. And, you know, I was very lucky. I competed with some really talented people, you know, Steve Orton and co like that. And just shared a stage with them, and this is how much time I spend bodybuilding in my head, bro. Last night I was thinking about the photo of Kenny O'Malley standing next to Kai Green, and I remember all these people got online and went, look how fucking small he is, la la la, and I was thinking, you guys you don't know what you're talking about. This guy is standing next to a fucking God, you know, like one of the people that we hold at such a high level, just to be able to stand on stage next to someone like that.
Exactly.
You know, and that to me is kind of what bodybuilding's all about, you know?
So
true.
when I'm sort of getting clients ready for competitions, we start out with goals, right? And the goal is, what can you create over the next period of time? And if you manage to create that and put that on stage, then you've been successful, irrespective of the outcome, because the outcome's outside your control. Some freak could turn up and you end up, last or second or third or wherever. You can't control winning and losing. You can control what you present on stage, and if that's good enough, then great. If it's not good enough, then at least you've been successful in the preparation that you've done. So it keeps that goal intrinsic as opposed to outcome related.
I also reckon it's about having fucking fun on the day and coming away going, I spent 20 weeks preparing for this thing, and this thing was fucking gold on the day, and what an experience. And there's fucking 99% of our population that will never understand that experience I just had that I worked for.
Yeah. But, so true. So true, man.
Right.
I think, I think enjoying it was probably, that was the key thing, was just like, and once every single time I get ready for a show, on show day, I wake up. This is the feeling that I get. I wake up and I'm like, oh, I made it. That feeling, made it. It's like, I did it again. And that's enough. That's enough. Making it to that point of knowing I've done it. And then the challenge of holding your physique together and your composure for the day, that's the sport. That's the sport part that I love. Getting up there with other athletes with the same mentality. And then ensuring that you can have fun. Don't become one of those. You typically see this in the new ranks where people, they give everything they've got for 16 weeks. And then when they don't get a top 3 placing or a top placing, they become trophy kickers and they don't realize how they look at that point. And I just think you've just got to get out there and have fun at that point and become almost less competitive, like to the point where you've done everything you can do and just have fun with your sport.
Yeah, man. Look, life to me is all about experiences, and the punishing, grueling stuff is the fucking journey on the way. And like you say, you get to the end and you're like, fuck, I fucking made it. And then the day for me is a bit of a celebration. And it's like, I always had to sing my head because I was quite a shy, as I grew up. And I even remember, when I was first teaching, I'd have staff meetings and I wouldn't say anything because I didn't want to talk in front of people. But bodybuilding helped me with that. And I had this little routine I go through when I get backstage and I'm like, right, I'm coming out there. I've got 60 seconds. It's the fucking Nate show. I'm going to give the people in the crowd something to fucking look at, and it's like your time, you've put all this time and effort. Enjoy yourself. I can get out there and have fun. Right. And then this is going back to the bit that's not so enjoyable. Here's your photo. So, well, fuck, that is...
some transformation.
Yeah, man.
Thank you.
So what's the total, 25 weeks between photos?
Yeah, 25 weeks. That photo on the left was originally taken in Steve Campbell's office. I remember going to see him being like, man, I need to do something. This is getting out of control. And he was like, Steve's always real supportive of me no matter what I've done. And it just worked out. At that particular time, I ended up so I had full custody of my daughter. At that point in time was a new thing for me. And it was very, very unrealistic for me to travel out to Takapuna and have my daughter full time because she schools probably 40 minutes north of where we are now. And Steve Campbell's probably about 20 minutes south of where we are. So it didn't make sense in terms of like my time value and stuff. And Alma actually lives probably 5 minutes around the corner from me. So I thought, man, if I'm going to do something, I need to do something with somebody that's close to where I stay. And so Alma was just like the logical decision at that point.
Nice.
So that was 25 weeks out in Steve's office. And the other one was, Alma was like, oh, let's just do a sneaky shot and pop it up on Insta a day out and just do it through a window. So
that's just not just stripping body fat between those two, man. There's a lot of muscle size come back on, eh?
Yeah, man.
You did really well with that.
That's what I'm looking at. I'm thinking like you look at the
so
difference in the traps and the delts. You know, there's a ton of size that came back, and I guess you know you would have had a bit of muscle memory, but a shit ton of hard work there, bro. So well done.
thanks, man. Thank you very much.
There you go. And look at that leg separation. I have to ask you, I was thinking about this when I was driving home. Again, more bodybuilding in my head. I was like, I've got to ask Josh, do you believe that there's something about the way you train legs that has added to the separation that you've got? Because some people, you know, can be peeled, but they don't have the deep separation. I know there's probably a genetic component to it, but is there something that you do that you believe gives you that level of separation in your quads?
Yeah, man, I do, and I, this advice was given to me. It wasn't actually given to me. I was sitting there listening, and it was Mo. Mo was giving some advice to a different competitor at a competition a long time ago. I can't even remember which one it was, and he was telling this competitor how to bring the separation out in his quad, and he said to elevate his butt off of the seat of the leg extension and to focus on slow contractions, and you need to almost squeeze from your hips downwards. And I've done that. I do that as like a finishing set in the on season. And I do still elevate my glutes off of the seat in the off season as well, and try to maintain as much good technique as I can. And what I find is it actually does. You're able to hit the top parts of your muscles, and even when it comes to posing, the way that you can contract your muscles is totally different. There's a fuller contraction from the top downwards. So it was that, you know, like Mo gives a lot of gold nuggets out, and people just kind of listen and nod, but you've got to remember that man,
Knight to the Olympia, man.
He's the best we've ever had. He is the GOAT. And anything he says, you've got to take. You have to, like, if it's advice, you actually have to take it on board. He's not just another guy who's just throwing his 2 cents in there for you. He's actually got the gold. So that was one.
Ignore it your own peril. You know?
Exactly. So that was one of the gold nuggets that he gave to someone else, and I stole.
That's great. So, look, when you get guys of that caliber and they say something, like I sit there and I'll fucking like actively listen for anything when I'm talking to someone like that, because it's easy to kind of half-ass listen and do, you know, talk and kind of miss something like that could be critical. And when you're talking about contracting and getting that contraction right up your leg, the top of your quad is fucking remarkable. You know, like most people sort of fade into their hips, but yours is actually popping right through. So,
thanks, man. Yeah. I was quite surprised with how they came out on the day. It was a new look.
Yeah. But you compare it with Andrew's right next to you. I mean, he's not quite in the pose yet, so he hasn't quite squeezed it down. But the separation you've got right up near your hips, like way better than what he's got there.
Yeah.
Feathering's gold too, man. It's choice. Always been a fan. There we go. Mitch, yourself, and Andrew. So, fuck, 3 good guys, man. Like, I know I've known Andrew for years, but I met Mitch outside, had a yarn with him. He was really cool. And yourself, fuck, what a cool top 3 to sort of have out there battling it out at the end. Awesome.
Yeah, man. I've only just connected with Mitch, and he's honestly such a humble giant,
fuck, he's a big unit in real, like when you physically, when you see him, fuck, he was sort of sitting down outside, and I just went, hey man, really well done. I saw you up there, look really fucking good, and I kind of looked at him and went, Jesus, he's wide. You know, he's just a big man, you know?
Big frame. Yeah, big frame. Yeah, and Andrew, you know, like I was talking with Andrew backstage, and he was so positive, and he was just sharing bits and bobs about how he does things. And one thing I fell in love with on the day was his composure on stage, you know, how he conducted himself. And after being on stage with him and then watching him in the bodybuilding ranks, I came away from that experience being like, holy shit, there is so much that I have learned from him. And there's so much more that I could do differently next time. I know that I need to work on my posing, because that guy nails his posing on every single shot. He knows that.
I'll give you a bit of insight, bro. I'll give you an insight. So I went to a posing class with Andrew about probably 17 years ago. So he's been running posing classes for that long. So that boy has spent so long. And you're right, though. He is, you know, he gives a master class, you know, really does. Mm-hmm. Well, fuck, I've enjoyed this conversation, bro. Been way too long between drinks, man.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I want to give you some time just to, you know, 25 weeks of dieting. There must be a bunch of people that you want to thank and shout out to, and just give some kudos back to, man. So, floor's yours, my man.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. First of all, thank you guys for having us on the show today. Really appreciate it. What you guys are doing is really, really neat. I would like to thank, first of all, Elmer. He was amazing. I couldn't have done it without his support. His support was phenomenal. One of his athletes, Christine, was right there with him, supporting the whole way through. And my partner, she was phenomenal. People more so in the sport. MJ Marjon, he's another coach. He's always in my ear about it, and he humbles me a lot. And he's a very, very close friend of mine who I hold dear. His opinion is one of the best in my opinion. Mateo, just for his ongoing inspiration. And then I'd really like to thank all of the guys in the class that I competed with. There's a couple of guys I can't quite remember the names of, but off the bat it would be Darren first and foremost, who I've become really close friends with. He's a really neat person who's got such a wicked attitude about sports. And he just needs to keep coming back, man, because his conditioning is next level. Chrissy, who got second place, I think, in between Darren and I, was a really nice fella who's maintained contact. Shaylin he's a good friend of mine, and he's also maintained contact. A bunch of other people in the group as well. And if there's anybody else that I've forgotten to mention, Shano, can't forget Shane. I remember hitting him up on the D-Lo being like, man, is your show still on this year? And he goes, yeah, bro, it looks like it. And I said, please keep this quiet, but I think I'm going to hit it. And he goes, sweet, man, let's wait and see what happens. But whenever I talk to him, he always messages back. He ran such an amazing show. He always talks to you like, you know, you're a friend that he hasn't seen for quite some time. He makes you feel super comfortable. And again, he's another body that inspires me in this country, not just because he looks incredible when he gets on stage as a professional, but because he's got that giant business that he runs, and he's a full-time family man, and he does 100%, 110% on all of them at the same time. So thank you to him. And to the big man himself, Mo, for putting on the shows, and for having such a positive. He's had such a positive word in my ear about competing over the past couple of years. So big thanks to everybody. Also, Roger at Extreme Nutrition is the man, and has supported me with supplements for quite some time too.
Oh, fuck, that's awesome, bro. I haven't seen Roger for many years, but he's cool, man. I like that guy. Hey, just on it before we were getting sort of cut off there, but, you know, I was thinking about it again in my head, about when the Federation changed from NZIFBB to NZIFBB, whatever the names were. And it was a pretty murky, dark time, and there was a lot of, you know, a lot of bitching and whinging, and, you know, perhaps the way things were done weren't, you know, the best way they could have been done. But all that's said and done, and that's fucking history that's been well put to bed. But, you know, the Federation has developed in a really positive way, and it just seems that every year it gets better, and people's attitudes just get better and better, and there's more and more support. So thank you, Mo, for what you do in that respect. You've made an amazing transformation. for the federation, and it's something that, you know, its athletes and certainly the committee can be really proud of. So thank you for that. Hey, Josh, thank you. Been so good talking, bro. And next time I'm up your way, I will sing out and we'll catch up. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Josh.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. Appreciate it.
No worries. Okay, people, we will catch you around.
Cheers, mate.
Catch you guys. See you, mate.